Hello, everybody. Trying out something new. My name is Brian Wiggins. I am a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a Jiu-Jitsu coach. I am a certified nutrition coach, and I am, I guess technically, by the absolute most liberal definition, a professional grappler. And I'm trying something new here. If you are listening to this is going to be the first episode of the new No BS BJJ podcast. Perhaps you are watching this on YouTube. Maybe you've seen previous videos that I have done, and you can see this is a new format. What I'm attempting to do here is to make these longer talks about the science behind jiu-jitsu and technique, nutrition, fitness, all of that. Try to make them a little bit more accessible. And I thought maybe getting it in an audio format would make it much more accessible for people. That way they could listen to things on their way to work or on the treadmill or wherever, as opposed to having to sit down and watch a 30-minute video. But the videos will still be there if you so desire. I figured it would be good to start off with a little bit of an explanation, because I don't think I ever really explained why I started doing the No BS BJJ stuff. And I figured with the podcast, this would be a good place to start. As I mentioned just about a minute ago, I did a professional grappling event for Fury Grappling, which is a part of CFFC, Cage Fury Fighting Championships, which is a regional MMA promotion based in the Philadelphia area that actually feeds into the UFC. Not that I'm ever thinking I'm going to be on the UFC for jiu-jitsu. I don't have any aspirations to that. It would be awesome, but I don't see it happening. At any rate, one of the questions they ask when you apply to do a super fight with them is, how many Instagram followers do you have? Because obviously they want to drive more eyes onto their product. Makes perfect sense. Now, me being an older grappler, someone in their late 40s, while I'm still in what I think is pretty good shape and I still feel like I can put on a good performance on the mat, I'm not going to have the same draw as some of the younger grapplers out there that they might be bringing in for their main cards. So I thought, you know what, if I want to do more events, and I feel like I do have more matches left in me, I need to make myself as attractive a prospect as possible to CFFC, to Fury Grappling. So I was like, I'm going to grow my Instagram following. That will help drive more people maybe to want to watch the match, and maybe they'll want to put me in more matches. So earlier this summer, I decided to start doing more content. Now the question became, what kind of content should I do? Because there are plenty of people out there who have more experience, who have more clout, who might definitely have better technique than me, world-class athletes that are putting out tutorials about different techniques. So I didn't necessarily want to just do more technique videos, because then what am I really adding to the conversation there? I've done a couple because I feel like I do have some little things to add to the conversation, but largely I felt like a tutorial series was just going to be me shouting into the void. There's too many other people that are doing it and that are doing it very well. So I figured I would take a slightly different slant and look at the science behind what it is that we do, behind technique, training, nutrition, all of that, like I mentioned before. And so this No BS BJJ thing started going. That's what I decided to do with it. The thing that I figured, though, is that I have no intention of being an influencer. My goal is just to put the information out there. If I can be entertaining with it, awesome. If I can be interesting with it, that's honestly what I'm aiming for. That is pretty much my highest aspiration with all of this. There are people out there who are really, really entertaining with the way that they present this information like this. So again, I have to sort of be realistic with where I fall into the spectrum of things, into the continuum of information that's going out there. So this is kind of like the No BS thing, is that there's no frills. It's just me talking about this stuff based on research that I've done, experience, all of that. At any rate, that is the long and short of how this No BS BJJ thing got started and what you'll be hearing when you listened to these episodes of the podcast. And for those of you who might have been watching those YouTube videos before, this is kind of a slight kind of refresh of what you'll be seeing. So at any rate, today, what we're going to be talking about is how to recover best between workouts. This is a really important thing. One, if you are trying to be a competitive athlete, you need to figure out how to recover as best you can, so that way you can get more workouts in. And if you're a hobbyist, you want to know how to recover in between maybe fewer and less intense workouts, but maybe you're like me and you're an older athlete, an older hobbyist, and you don't want to feel like crap for days on end and make it even harder for you to get back into the gym or back onto the mats. So we're going to talk about the strategies that you can take to, or rather, the tactics you can employ to help best recover between your workouts. So let's get into it. There's not two major things, but there's two things that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the majors and we're going to be looking at the minors. Think of it like college. Major is the big subject that's going to get you your degree. And then if you have a minor, it's like you're taking a few other classes to maybe supplement that major, or maybe it's just stuff that you're interested in. But the major is what's going to get you your job once you graduate. Maybe not. I know the college system is a whole other thing. At any rate, we're talking about the majors and the minors. So let's start with the majors. What are the most important things that you can do in order to get recovered as best as possible for your next workout? There are, let's see, what do I have on my list here? 1, 2, 3, 4 things that I have on here. They are sleep, nutrition, the right amount of activity, and taking time off. So let's get into those things. Now, first thing on this list of our majors is sleep. Sleep is the 100% undisputed, unrivaled GOAT when it comes to your ability to recover from anything, whether it's a workout, whether it's just a long day, whether it's a bad day, injury, doesn't matter. Sleep is the GOAT. You cannot beat sleep. You cannot substitute sleep with anything else. It is the one constant. It is the one non-negotiable. It doesn't matter if you're bulking, maintenance phase, or cutting weight. It doesn't matter if you're just trying to maintain and just kind of chilling in class, or whether you're really going hard. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Sleep is the thing you have to have. Now, why? Why is sleep the most important thing? This is when our body most effectively repairs everything in our body. We're always building muscle. Your body's always trying to repair itself and trying to maintain balance and equilibrium and all of that stuff. But sleep is when most of this stuff happens. So if you're getting good sleep, this is when the most of your muscle building is going to happen. We don't build muscle in the gym. What we do in the gym stimulates a process that once we finally rest and when we sleep, that's when the muscle is actually being built. This is when our endocrine system is able to better maintain or hit, I don't know if it's really a reset button, but getting good sleep is going to help us maintain a good hormonal balance. This is when sleep is when short-term memory is converted into long-term memory. So you might find you feel like a little brain fog if you don't get a good night's sleep, or you're forgetting things that, like, man, why don't I remember that this thing happened yesterday, or I learned this thing, or whatever. All of that happens when you sleep. You need to get good sleep for all of these things. And this is going to make you better as functioning in life, but it's also going to make you better at jiu-jitsu. Think about that. Your muscles are going to recover. You're going to feel better. You're going to be able to more readily remember those techniques, because that's also when muscle memory is built. Muscle memory happens in the brain. So we need to have all of that rest. So in general, for good sleep, what do you need on average? It's different for everybody. But on average, the vast majority of us need anywhere between 7 to 9 hours of quality, uninterrupted sleep. So aim for that. If you know that you have to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning, it might mean that you need to start getting ready and hitting the sack by like 9 o'clock at night if you want to get a full 7 to 9 hours of sleep, depending on how much you need. Some people need more. Some people can get by with a little bit less. Now, the other thing you want to do here when trying to get good sleep is don't do things that are going to interfere with you getting good sleep. So, what are those things? An easy one that a lot of us do without even realizing it is having some kind of screen on in front of us can actually disrupt our sleep patterns. The intense blue light, and that's essentially what, I know it might look white or, but think about it. If you're in a dark room and you have a television on or you have your phone on and you're not looking directly at it, the light almost looks blue. It's like this intense blue color. That light actually interferes with our sleep patterns. So looking at your phone in a dark room, or even just looking at your phone, period, can maybe, it's different for everyone, but generally speaking, it disrupts our sleep patterns. So put the phone away for several minutes. Let your brain start getting into the rhythm of trying to shut down. The other things that can interfere with sleep, alcohol and caffeine. Now, you might be someone who can have a cup of coffee, a triple shot of espresso, and still fall right asleep. That's entirely possible. However, even though you're asleep, the caffeine, the chemical, again, this is for most people. I understand everyone's a little bit different. But the caffeine in general is still going to disrupt that quality sleep. So yes, you will be sleeping, but you'll have a harder time achieving REM sleep, that deep sleep you need for it to affect the most efficient and effective repairs on the body. So don't have caffeine within, say, 4 to 6 hours of when you want to go to bed. That's a good guideline there. Alcohol can also affect our ability to get quality sleep. Yes, people can drink alcohol and they might want to fall asleep right away. It doesn't, it's a suppressant, or a depressant, excuse me. It's a depressant, so yeah, you're going to want to go to sleep. But again, the alcohol interferes with quality sleep. So you shouldn't have alcohol anywhere from 4 to 6 hours before going to bed. Different for everyone, but in general, that's what you should aim for. You should play around with that and see what happens. Now, in general, I don't drink. I'm not telling you that you can't drink. Alcohol, we also know, interferes with our metabolism. It affects our ability to build muscle. It affects our ability to lose weight. So I'm a proponent of not really drinking a lot, if any, but you do you. There's nothing wrong with it, provided it's not a problem. But basically be completely sober by bedtime. That's the way you want to go. So sleep. All right. What's the next thing on our list? Nutrition. Now, sleep is by far and away the first place. It's so far ahead that nothing else can catch it. So everything else that we're talking about in the majors column here is basically everyone's vying for second place. These are all really important things, but none of them gets anywhere near the importance of sleep. But these are all still important things. So nutrition. This is the next most important thing on our list. How do we gauge our nutrition in a way to affect the best recovery between workouts so we can go hard again the next day or 2 days later or whatever our schedule is? The first thing here is eating an appropriate amount of calories for your gender, your body weight, your genetics, all of that. It's a little different for everyone, but having the right amount of calories coming in at maintenance, what you need to get through the day, is going to best help affect recovery in between your workouts. Now, if you need to have an idea of what your macros should be, like how much protein, and you want an estimate of your calories, there's a link in the description of both the podcast and the YouTube video that will that'll take you to a form you can fill out. You fill it out, I'll give you, and it takes about 5 days for me to get through it. And I'll send you, it's completely free. There's no sales pitch here, but I'll send you a little worksheet that'll show you an estimate of what your calories should be in different, for different areas, say weight loss, maintenance, things like that. So in the show notes, check it out. Anyway, you want to get the right number of calories. Within those calories, you want to break this down a little bit further. Of the 3 forms of energy that you'll be taking in, which is protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Protein is kind of the big daddy of them all, the winner here. If you've seen my previous videos or you've seen my Instagram stuff, you'll see I've said this before, and the science is telling us right now, protein is king. So how much do we want? we want to get about 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. So I weigh 165 pounds. So I'm aiming on average for about 165 grams of protein per day. I actually trend a little bit higher than that because there are some studies. It's still kind of inconclusive, but there are some studies that are saying that as we age, it's probably not a bad idea to start upping our protein intake a little bit more because of the fact that as we age, our bodies have a harder time maintaining muscle, building muscle. So having a little bit more protein, you're almost never going to be in a bad situation by upping your protein. Almost. But anyway, why do we want to do this? Good protein intake has been shown to reduce DOMS, which is delayed onset muscle soreness. Why? Because protein is what's used to repair and build muscle. So if we're getting the right amount of protein, well, it means our body's more effectively able to repair and build muscle up, which means we're probably going to be less sore moving forward with that. Now, we do know that with repetitive exercise, if we're untrained and we're going into a trained territory, that DOMS tends to last a little bit longer, but it can eventually be reduced or even go away as we get trained. Because some of it's just your body's response to this new stimulus, and then it realizes that, oh, wait a minute, we're not in danger. We don't have to send pain signals. But regardless, good protein intake can reduce that soreness in between workouts. Now, here's the thing. You'll see a lot of stuff out there for saying what kind of protein you need to get and the timing of that protein. Here's the thing. As long as you are consistently getting at or near whatever your goal number is, as long as, say, 80% of the time, 80, 90% of the time, you're getting near that, real close to that, you're going to be fine. You're in good shape. Yes, as you get to be a more advanced, maybe even competing athlete. Now, I'm talking about someone who is doing like hardcore. This is like your job. You're going to be an athlete. So you might be training for ADCC or IBJJF, or you're a professional fighter or an amateur fighter who's training like a professional. Then maybe the timing starts to play a bigger role, maybe. But in general, if you are hitting your protein numbers consistently, you're going to be just fine. And as far as your sources go, yes, there are some sources that are technically better than others. But again, as long as you're getting enough protein, about 1 gram per pound of body weight per day, you're going to be okay. Now, we've done protein, so now we're left with fats and carbs. Here's the thing. When it comes to fats and carbs, as an energy source, they are relatively interchangeable for the balance of your calories. So we know that protein is about 4 calories per gram, and we know that fats are 9 calories per gram, carbs are 4 calories per gram. So as far as like the amount of energy, yes, fat has more calories per gram and is actually a better source of energy. But as far as like how our body is going to process it and use it and all of that, for the rest of our diet, we can actually let them be relatively interchangeable. So you want to aim for about a 60-40 split, whether that 60 is going to be fat and 40 carbs, or vice versa, where it's 60% carbs and 40% fat. It's completely up to you. You can make it work however you want. The carbs, now here's the thing. Carbs might win out slightly. Why? One of the reasons why we might feel down and a lack of energy, just tired, sore, all of that, is because when we do a hard workout, we're expending energy. What do our muscles use for energy? Glucose. Glucose is sugar. So, on that note, sugar is not the enemy. Unless you have some kind of metabolic or otherwise disorder, such as diabetes, in which case sugar is not necessarily the enemy, but sugar definitely needs to be monitored in a much different way than the average person. But unless you have a very specific medical reason, or you just don't like how you feel after you eat carbs, and that's fine too. That is completely legitimate. Vibes are completely a thing. But in general, how our metabolism works, carbs are not the enemy, sugar is not the enemy. So we feel sore, we feel run down, we feel tired because we are energy depleted. Our muscles store sugar, glycogen. And if those stores are depleted, we need to rebuild them back up. So in that case, carbs kind of win out slightly, because they're going to help you replenish that glycogen. They're going to help you replenish your energy stores, and it's going to do it more efficiently because your body has to do less to take the carbohydrate, which is already a sugar, and break it down into the various components it needs to then replenish your body's energy. Whereas fat, it'll do the same thing, it just takes longer. Okay? So, you fill up, and then you can go harder sooner. As far as the fats go, in general, focus on healthy fats. Things like olive oils, seed oils. Yes, I said seed oils. Seed oils are not the enemy. Yes, they are processed. Processed does not equal bad. We have to get beyond that particular fallacy. Processed does not equal bad. So, seed oils. Seed oils are fine. But focus on those healthy fats, like fats you get from, say, from fish, right? Focus on that. Now, if you aren't in a caloric surplus, in other words, you aren't eating more calories than you are expending throughout the day, any fat that you eat, any sugar that you eat, anything you eat, is going to be converted into sugar. It's going to be used for other metabolic processes. All of it's going to be used. You aren't going to be putting on weight. In other words, you can eat fat or sugar, and as long as you're at your maintenance calories, that sugar or fat will not be stored as adipose tissue, which is our body fat. It just takes a little longer for fat to be converted into, say, energy stores. Fat is used directly for other processes, but it's going to be used up. So you don't have to worry about, I'm having too much sugar and that's going to make me fat. No, if you're having too much sugar and it puts you into a caloric surplus, then you'll put on weight. Okay? So, they're pretty interchangeable. Again, unless you are a high-level, elite athlete doing 2 to 3 workouts a day, just about any 60-40-ish, and again, these are estimates, any 60-40 split is probably going to be just fine. Play around, find out what works for you. Right? So I try to keep my fat generally low. But here's the thing. I love ice cream. Ice cream is, oh my God, it's amazing. I love ice cream. And Tillamook ice cream, by the way, I love Tillamook ice cream. If you can find Tillamook ice cream in a grocery store near you, it is amazing. Their chocolate peanut butter ice cream is, oh God, I love it. Anyway, not that I'm looking for a sponsorship or anything. So I tend to, on days where I might be a little bit heavy fat, go a little bit less carb because I had my bowl of ice cream. Anyway, those are fats and carbs. Protein, we have that. What else nutrition-wise can we do in order to further our recovery? Big one, hydrate. I should put hydrate at the top of this list, but this is how I made my outline. Make sure you're drinking enough water. It is so easy to become dehydrated. And if you're dehydrated, one, you're going to feel like shit. I know that if I get dehydrated, I actually get a migraine from it. And it's just like, then I'm like, it sticks with me for hours. So make sure you're getting enough water throughout the day. All right. Usually your pee should be almost clear. I mean, if you're peeing every 20 to 30 minutes, you're probably super hydrated. Do you need to drink that much? I don't know. But if you're only peeing like once or twice a day, you probably don't have enough. And if you're, the more yellow your pee is, I know this is getting in weird territory, but the more yellow your pee is, the more dehydrated you are. So make sure you're staying hydrated. This is going to help you through workouts. It's going to help you with recovery. There have been studies that have shown that being even slightly dehydrated can dramatically decrease your ability to engage in athletic activity. Your strength drops, your power drops, all of that. Something you might think about adding into a couple times a day into your water is getting maybe an electrolyte mix if you aren't getting enough in your diet. Now, if you're getting enough magnesium and sodium and sodium, potassium, and magnesium through other sources, do you have to have an electrolyte mix? Not necessarily. If you want to have one, great, go for it. But maybe add some electrolytes in there. That will also help with recovery because as we're going through intense athletic activity, whether it's strength training or jiu-jitsu or going for a run or whatever, it is going to throw some of our electrolyte balances out of whack. So being able to replenish that will definitely be helpful. There's plenty of powders out there. Gatorade Zero is a good one. There's a Gator Light that I like. You can use that. Target's got its own brand that's essentially the same as the Gator Light stuff, but cheaper. It doesn't taste quite as good, but in the end, it's about the same. You put that over ice, you're fine. Element is a really popular one. I'm not a fan of Element just because of how much salt or how salty it tastes. My wife loves it. Find one that works for you. Do you have to have it? Not necessarily. It doesn't hurt though. Now, with nutrition, does timing matter? Maybe. That's the best answer I can give you. Maybe. There is conflicting research that in regards to when you need to eat and how much the timing really matters. Your anabolic window, so your window to consume protein. Now, for a while, it was thought that, man, you needed to consume protein within an hour of completing strength training in order for you to fully synthesize and get the most out of that protein and build the muscle. It turns out that anabolic window is kind of a myth. It's actually a 5-hour window before and after your workout, so it's about 10 hours. So as long as you have a healthy source of protein within 5 hours before or after, or both, honestly, with your protein, you're going to be fine. That's a pretty wide window, so in that case, the timing doesn't matter as much. Carbs may matter. They may matter if you are low. So in other words, when you first wake up in the morning and your goal is to go hit the gym or get a workout in right away, then the carbs right away might matter because you've gone a long time without consuming anything and your blood sugar might be a bit low. So you're going to want to have something probably first thing in the morning to give you that oomph. If you just did a hard workout, and you have another hard workout coming up. So maybe you went and you lifted at the gym and then in a few hours you're going to be going to do some jiu-jitsu. In that case, having some sugar, some carbs is going to be very helpful there as well. Again, we want to replenish the gas tank and sugar and carbs are a good way to do that. If you're competing, so let's say it's competition day and you just finished your no-gi bracket and now you have about an hour or so or two before you have to go and compete in your gi bracket. Or maybe you have multiple matches, but you know you're going to have more than an hour in between matches. You've gone hard either for that 4, 5, 6 minutes for your initial match, but then you also are going to be going hard coming up. Having some sugar there, having some carbs is going to be really, really helpful. Power lifters, man, you watch what they do. They go do their lift, and then they're like mashing gummy bears because it's just like pure sugar, low fat. If you need quick sugar in your system, high sugar, low fat is the way to go because fat will actually kind of slow the process down. And if you haven't been having a lot of fat or you're coming off of a fast, high fat might disrupt your digestive system a little bit, but having some sugar there. But again, coming back to all of this, does the timing matter? Except in very specific circumstances, unless you are an elite, high-level athlete, it probably doesn't matter. Just find what works best for you and what lets you feel your best. Again, some people might be able to work out first thing in the morning without eating anything, and they'll feel great. Great. If that's you, awesome. None of these are hard and fast rules. I mean, sleep is, and yes, overall nutrition is. But when we get into the micro here, the minors, for the most part, it doesn't matter. Find what works best for you. Now, that wraps up nutrition. What's next? The right amount of activity. This kind of falls as a subset of sleep and rest, but I'm making it its own thing because there's a few things we want to hit on here. It's finding the right amount of activity. This is going to be different than for everybody, but the best way to avoid being so overtrained that you cannot possibly go hard for another week, the best way to avoid being injured because you did too much is just to simply not overtrain and not do too much. Now, how much is too much? Different for everyone. If you're young, maybe you're made out of magic and rubber. We've all seen that 23-year-old that can do 3 a day, 6 days a week and be perfectly fine. If you're feeling okay and you're able to do it, awesome, go for it. You still should build in some time off. We're going to get to that. But if you're older like me, we can't go like we did when we were 23 years old. And we kind of have to accept that. As young as we might feel in our minds and in our hearts, our bodies still have an odometer that's been ticking off. Now, just because I'm 47 as of right now, I don't feel like I move or feel like a 47-year-old. But I'm also not 23. So I have to accept the fact that I cannot do two-a-days all the time. I can do them every now and again. So I've got to back my activity off. So figuring out how much activity to do in a day and in a week is important. Figure out what works for you, what lets you still go hard during a workout and then be able to keep going the next day and feel okay. Now, here's the thing. If we're going hard enough in a workout to actually get something out of it, we should feel something. If you don't feel sore at all and you're not the least bit tired, either you are a genetic freak, which is possible, or you didn't go hard enough. More than likely, it's the second one. Now, you might be leaving some on the table, or leaving some out there, holding some back in Tuesday's workout so that on Wednesday you can go hard. That's a little different. But if in general, if you're not feeling much, if every day you're feeling fresh as a daisy, it means you can push yourself harder. And you should incrementally push yourself harder, not immediately jump up several steps, because that's a good way to get injured. But what else? As far as finding the right amount of activity, every day should not be a super hard day. You want to build easier days in, different levels of intensity with different goals to allow your body to recover. So you're not necessarily going to go and hit a chest workout 2 days in a row and go super hard. You're going to want to maybe, have a day off in between, and you could do some other activity, do legs. Or you're going really hard at jiu-jitsu tonight at class, and you're going to get a bunch of really hard rounds in, but you've got training again tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow is a slightly different day. You're doing more positional sparring or more flow rolling, timing, something like that. So you want to adjust every day, have a plan in place, but you want to adjust and figure out a plan that's going to work for you, because super intense every single day is eventually going to lead to some kind of overtraining and possibly injury. How do you know you've done too much? It's one of those things that most of the time we figure it out too late. We know we've gone over the line because we can look back and see the line behind us, but usually there are some signs ahead of time that can let us know that something is, or let us know it might be time for us to back off a little bit. There are 4 major signs we want to look for. Sign number 1, your mood. Keep an eye on your mood every day. If you're going more than 4 days in a week and you're feeling unusually down or unmotivated, it could be a sign that you're getting into overtrained territory. Like I said, there's no definite line. They have not been able to identify in research a specific line that is crossed that says you are now overtrained. It's more like an amalgam of symptoms that have manifested and says, okay, yes, you're in overtrained territory. But if your mood is just if you're in a bad mood, you're down, sad, not to say there's other things that can't trigger that, but if you're feeling that more than 4 days in a week, you might be in overtrained territory. Sleep. If you're getting really poor sleep, even though you're getting to bed at 9 o'clock at night and you're waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but you're still feeling super tired all day, it might mean that you're not getting good sleep. Overdoing it can impact sleep quality. Soreness. Now, if you're pushing yourself hard, there will be some muscle soreness. That's normal, and that's a sign that you trained well enough. But if you're going 2 to 3 days after your workout and you're still feeling like, oh my God, I can't move, and you're in super, super sore, more than 2 to 3 days after that workout, that's a sign you're overdoing it. It could be that you went too hard in that workout, or that you're doing too many workouts and you're not giving yourself enough time to recover. Now, if you're also getting injured more often, and I don't mean necessarily big ones, it's more like the little tweaks while you're training. My shoulder feels that acute little twinge as I'm doing a bench press, or one of your quads feels off as you're doing squats, or you're just walking around. There's little bumps and bruises along the way. If they're happening more frequently, that is a sign. Now, does one of these alone mean that you're going too hard, doing too much? Not necessarily. You're going to have to judge that for yourself. So it doesn't mean you wake up tired one day and be like, oh, no, never mind, not going to train today. Don't use it as an excuse, but look at the full picture. If you're feeling tired and your mood has been off for a few days and you're still sore, it's like, maybe today I need to take it light or even take a day off. Right? Now, you should also, in addition to all of this, as far as deciding how much training to do, always give yourself at least one full rest day. And by that, I mean you do nothing. You're not going light. Oh, I'm just going to go and do a really easy set in the gym, or I'm just going to get a few light rolls in. No, one full rest day where you do nothing. Maybe you go for a light walk around the block, get a 20-minute walk in. That's about the extent of it. The rest of the time, take the day off. Sit down, play some Xbox, watch TV, whatever the case is. But you have to give yourself that at least one full day of recovery. Now, as you age, especially when you get into your 30s, and definitely when you get into your 40s, you're probably going to need more days off and fewer hard days. Our bodies only can take so much. And as our bodies age, things start to break down. It becomes harder to recover. So I know I need more than one. I usually have 2 full rest days every single week. Sometimes more, depending on how I'm feeling. But you have to build that stuff in. We have to remember, if we're getting older, we're not the same as we were when we were 23. But even when you're 23, when you're 17, you need to give yourself at least one rest day. I'm going to call that a non-negotiable. You have to do that. Now, branching off of that goes into our final point for the majors here. Days off. Just said, always building a day off. Lounge. Eat well. It doesn't mean just blow your nutrition out the window. And I'm not maniacal about my nutrition, but hit your protein goals, eat relatively healthy, just chill. It's going to be good for your mental health too, by the way, just to be able to have a day off and just relax. Maybe go up for a light walk if you're up to it. If you're feeling sore and you just want the day, go ahead. Take naps. It's cool. To that end, don't be afraid to give yourself a surprise day off. If you really feel like you need one, look at all those symptoms we talked about before. If you really feel like you need a day off, give yourself the day off. There's nothing bad about that. Look back at those signals, listen to your body. This whole no days off is toxic bullshit. 100%. It is okay, if you're being honest with yourself, to give yourself a day off. Now, it becomes a fine line between I need this day off and I'm just feeling a little lazy today and I don't feel like working out. And that's perfectly okay too, to give yourself. If we're hobbyists, it's okay to give yourself a day off. It's perfectly fine. If you're a competing athlete, that's when you have to maybe dig a little bit deeper, because then it's not cool to just take days off for no reason. You might have to work through a little bit of that. But no days off, completely toxic. It's bullshit. Stop that. Even the most elite athletes in the world, think about this, the most elite athletes in the world take days off. If it's good enough for them, it is good enough for you. Every sport has an off season. Every single sport has some form of an off season where the players can finally stop and let their bodies heal, and they're not practicing their sport. They're not in the weight room, or if they are, it's very, very, very minimally in the off season. They just need to let their bodies recover so they can go hard for the next season. Even Jiu-Jitsu and MMA, grappling and MMA, they have an off season. It's usually right after a competition or after a fight. It only might be a week or two, because their season lasts essentially 8 weeks, right? They have their preseason, then an 8-week training culminates in their fight, and then they take a week or two off. But they're still taking time off to recover. You need to give yourself the same gift. If it's good enough for elite athletes, it is good enough for you. All right, those are the majors. Those are the things that you really need to have. I don't want to say non-negotiables, but those are the things that are going to make the absolute biggest impact on your ability to recover between workouts. So what are the minors? What are the other things that we could do, but maybe don't have as big an impact as all those other things? Thing number one here, supplements. Let's talk about supplements here. There are a lot of supplements out there. Do they help with recovery? It depends. Creatine. Creatine is kind of like the greatest supplement of all time. Why? Because there's hundreds, if not thousands of studies out there that have confirmed the effectiveness of creatine in those who are sensitive to taking it. There are people who take creatine and their bodies just do not process the creatine the same way and they don't get the same benefits. That's normal. But for the vast majority of people who are sensitive to being able to take creatine, there's tons of studies that show exactly what it does. And here's the thing. It's one of those things that they've done studies, and creatine does exactly what it's advertised to do. It aids recovery. It helps build muscle. Now, it does have a measurable positive impact on muscle recovery. Again, so many studies over decades show this to be true. They understand the mechanism, and they've been able to repeat it in controlled, randomized trials. Okay? But here's the thing. It doesn't have a huge impact. It's enough to be measured. And it's enough to be measured to the point where they can say, yes, creatine is doing more than if you did not take creatine. So it is statistically relevant. You can build muscle mass taking creatine. You will feel better. I'll say, if you're sensitive to it, you'll probably feel better taking it. It doesn't come anywhere near the impact of sleep and nutrition. But that being said, it is still worth trying 5 grams per day. 5 grams of creatine per day might be all that you need, and it's worth trying because it will have, if you're sensitive to it, it'll very likely have the benefits that I know that when I'm taking creatine, I can feel a noticeable difference in my recovery time. I feel like I'm able to recover more quickly. And the science backs that up. So creatine, awesome. There are actually some preliminary studies that are showing potentially positive neurological benefits as well of taking creatine, which I think is awesome. It turns out that the more they study it, it might actually have some other cool things that it's doing for the body. So creatine supplement, well worth the investment. What are some other ones out there? The other big one out there that is advertised as a form of recovery, BCAAs, branched chain amino acids. Do they work? Well, all right. The research on them shows that they kinda help with recovery a little bit, maybe. However, it is nothing that could not be achieved just by having complete sources of protein like chicken and fish and red meat, whey protein. If you're having sources of complete protein, it's going to do exactly the same thing that BCAAs claim to do, except they'll actually do it and in greater capacity because there's more of it. So my opinion on this, and there's a few other folks that'll back me up on this, save your money on the BCAAs. They're really not doing exactly what they're saying they're doing, and it's cheaper to buy a big value pack of chicken or to have a whey protein supplement than it is to do BCAAs. That's just my take on it. Save your money. Listen, if you like taking them, go for it, but it's not really doing what you want it to do. Now, there's a ton of other supplements out there that will claim to aid recovery that are not anabolic steroids. Listen, anabolic steroids are a whole other thing. I don't know enough about them to talk intelligently about them other than the fact that they are technically illegal and they do engage in chemical processes that'll let you build muscle and recover and all that, blah, 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 blah. But we're not talking about anabolic steroids. We're talking about the stuff you can get legally. Other supplements, the vast majority, if not all of them, with the exceptions of the 2 I just mentioned, don't really do what they claim they're going to do. They just don't. The mechanism with which they are purported to work isn't given. They're just saying, oh, this aids recovery, but they don't tell you how. What is the mechanism by which this engages with muscle and the body and your hormones and does it? They don't either describe it or they say that, oh, this is the mechanism, but it turns out that the mechanism actually isn't working the way that the manufacturer claims. It's just not how body chemistry works. So the manufacturers make a lot of claims as to what these recovery supplements will do, but in the end, when you get it into either a lab or just look at the basic chemistry of it, they just don't actually do that. Here's the thing. Most of these, while they say, oh, there's studies, the studies that are saying that, oh, if you take this supplement, you get this benefit, the vast majority of them, they're not well-designed studies. They aren't able to show a clear connection between you taking this supplement and this outcome happening. because there's too many other factors that could potentially influence it that they can't bring that one out. This comes from randomized human placebo trials, where you have everything controlled, and the only difference between Group A and Group B is Group A is taking the supplement and Group B is taking a placebo. But everything else is the same. That is a randomized human placebo trial, a controlled trial. That's when you can finally say, all right, this supplement might be doing the thing. Most of these studies aren't designed that way. So right away, we have an issue. The other thing about the studies that show, oh, these supplements are going to help you recover, is that a lot of these results fall within a standard deviation, which means that when we're looking at groups of data, when we look at data, there's always going to be fluctuations. There's usually a range of results that are considered, we'll call it standard or normal, right? So whatever the difference is above and below that. So if we know that we get a result of 10 for whatever study it is, I know we're making this up, but it might be that that's the average. So it means that some of those results might have been an 8.5 and some of those results might have been an 11.5. That's the standard deviation. So anything that falls within that says that this is the normal result. In order for a supplement to be proven that it works, you would have to go through this controlled trial. But in addition to that, the difference that it makes has to fall outside of that standard deviation. So that way there's no other explanation that there's like, no, this actually did the thing. Creatine does that. When they do creatine studies, they can show that, yes, creatine has results that fall outside of that standard deviation. The vast majority of other supplements do not. They fall within. So it means that the supplement may not actually be doing anything. They're seeing slight changes, but not enough to say that it's worth, that your body wouldn't do it anyway, given all the other changes. Most of the supplements, essentially, is what I'm getting to, they're essentially snake oil. Save your money. Don't spend the money. It is a huge industry, and they're going to put a lot of dollars behind advertising and marketing to make you think that they're doing what they're not actually doing. Are they bad actors? I don't think all of them are. Some of them are. Some of them are just trying to make a buck. Some of them honestly think this is what's happening. Save your money. Stick with the majors and creatine. That's really what you want to do here. Now, what's another modality of recovering? Cold plunge. Hear a lot about this. Is cold plunge an effective modality for recovery? It's kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. Can it help reduce inflammation? Yes, cold will help reduce inflammation. But there's problems with this. So, for example, you do not want to do a cold plunge within 1 to 2 hours of doing a strength training session. So you go to the gym and you're lifting hard and you're trying to build muscle. And then you go do a cold plunge within, say, an hour or two. This is a problem because studies have shown that when you jump into the cold water and you immediately reduce all of that inflammation, you're actually reducing some of your gains because you're creating inflammation by going to the gym and trying to get stronger. And going into a cold plunge can actually cut about 30% of those gains off because you're reducing that inflammation so quickly. So you should not be going into a cold plunge within an hour or two of lifting. Just don't do that. You're going to be undoing what you were just trying to accomplish. When should you do a cold plunge? If you're doing multiple workouts in a day, doing a cold plunge then might be a good thing. Why? It's going to, again, reduce that inflammation. It'll let you perform more effectively at that second session. So you go super, super hard. You're on the mats, training super hard in the morning, and you're getting all your rolls in. You're going to be a little sore and banged up, but you weren't necessarily building strength there. We're building technique, timing. It's more of a mental game. Yes, there are some physical gains on this as well, but then you go jump into cold plunge, you reduce that inflammation, you feel refreshed, and then you're able to go hard again later in the day. That's a good use of a cold plunge. If you're competing and you know you're doing multiple competitions, I know I'm competing this Saturday and I'm going to compete next Saturday and the Saturday after that. You've got a bunch of competitions coming up. Again, great at reducing inflammation. You're banged up from, going hard for however many matches you had at your competition. Getting into a cold plunge after that competition will help you reduce that inflammation. You can get back to training and keeping everything maintained, so you can go get ready to go for your next competition the following week. So if this basically is your in-season mode. So at this point, you aren't trying to grow muscle. Reducing inflammation is not a bad thing. It actually might help you reduce the risk of injury. from all that high effort on the mats. So in that point, a cold plunge, maybe not a bad idea. It could let you help bounce back more quickly. Honestly, with the exception of doing a cold plunge right after a strength training workout, with that exception, if you like where, okay, don't do it within an hour of that. If you like doing the cold plunge, go for it. It's awesome on vibes. It doesn't look like cold plunges do most of what people claim that it does. Yes, it does give you an endorphin rush, but it's very short-lived. Yes, it does slightly increase testosterone, but that testosterone level drops right back down within, say, like a half hour to an hour. These are all temporary gains. It doesn't do most of the things that people say that it does. What does it really do? It decreases inflammation. But if you like it on vibes, go for it. Nothing wrong with it. Go for it. Another modality to think about, sauna. Does sauna help with recovery? Again, mixed bag, maybe. Does it? We don't know. There are some very early, very preliminary studies that show that there might be a positive impact on muscle growth right after strength training. The idea being is it's sort of the opposite of taking a cold plunge. We're now increasing inflammation and getting more metabolites into the muscles. Maybe does it work? I don't know. It seems like maybe it does, but there's not enough information to say for certain. It might actually help relax tight muscles and ligaments. I know, I love saunas. When I'm feeling super tight, maybe even like a little tweaked, my back gets tweaked out, sitting in a sauna for 20, 30 minutes feels great. So yeah, maybe it does help relax your tight muscles and let you feel more, more relaxed. So great. Again, on vibes, if you like it, go for it. Nothing wrong with it. Sauna is one of those things, unless you have a pre-existing condition that should prohibit you from going into a sauna, which you should talk to a doctor about. You should talk to a doctor about all of these things, honestly. But provided you don't have any one of those pre-existing medical conditions, if you like it, go for it. It's not going to hurt anything. So, wrapping all this up, because this has gone longer than I thought it was going to go. We'll see if I can tighten this up in the future. What am I going for here? What am I trying to tell you? Don't major in the minors. That second group we just went over, are there some benefits? Yes, there are some benefits, but you need to take care of the big stuff first. If you're not getting enough sleep and not eating well enough and not giving yourself any days off, but you're focusing on how many BCAAs you're taking and how often you're ice plunging, and you're working on all these tiny little things that may or may not work, you're dealing with the last 10% of what you need to do to recover. Deal with the 90% first. All right, take care of the big stuff. Get your sleep in order. Get your nutrition in order. Again, if you need an idea of what your macros should look like as an estimate, link in the show description, in the show notes, in the description, all of that. It'll take you to a form. You fill it out. You're going to get a completely free breakdown. This is not a sales pitch. It's just so you have the information. But get your nutrition squared away. Get your activity on a day-to-day basis squared away. Give yourself days off. Work deloads into all of this. We didn't even go into deloads. That's going to have to be a whole nother episode. You do that, you're going to be 90% of the way there. Then you can tinker around with all the other stuff. If you have the time and you have the money and the wherewithal and you want to, play around with the other modalities. See what helps you. See what makes you feel better. And play around with those. But after you get all the other stuff done. Okay, that's it. That is my little spiel here on how to get best recovered after a workout. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really hope that you like this format of things. If you do, please subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram at St. Brian BJJ. It's also St. Brian BJJ on YouTube. So please follow me there. Subscribe, like, share, feed the algorithm, tell your friends. I'd really appreciate it. But again, thank you for your time. Have a great day. Let me know what questions you have, and I'll see if I can help you out in a future episode. Have an awesome day, everybody.